Using your influence to defend and reward lying, cheating, and stealing is evil. There should be no debate about this. And that's what Pokemon Challenges has been doing, while also warping the narrative of what really happened at the Pokemon World Championships. And it begins with this part from his video. Honestly, the lying going on here about the definition of a legal and gen Pokemon is what made me make this video. And this proves Pokemon Challenges is a bad actor trying to legitimize cheating in a more extreme way than what we've seen previously in the Pokemon community. Because it used to be this, we had legal, legit, illegal, and this is a lie. Because you can't have a legal hack. You go to any form of competition, any other rule set, and you get laughed out for trying to defend legal cheating. It is just completely impossible. It cannot exist by definition. But this is how the Pokemon community has been trying to gaslight cheating into being acceptable for well over a decade now. But Pokemon Challenges goes even further by saying a gen Pokemon is a legitimate Pokemon acquired illegitimately to save time. Everything about this is wrong. Like, using gen Pokemon is a deflection from it being cheating. There is no difference between a gen Pokemon and a hacked Pokemon. All gen Pokemon are illegal. Again, you can't have legal hacks, you can't have legal rule breaking, so if we want to remove the lies from Pokemon Challenges statement, a hacked Pokemon is an illegal Pokemon that broke the rules to gain an advantage. Having more time, resources, energy, and practice than the opponent is an objective advantage, and that's what a hacked Pokemon creates. If it was done just to save time, we also wouldn't see the dishonesty around the rule breaking, which further proves that's cheating, because people don't admit that they're using hacked Pokemon in tournament because they get disqualified because it's against the rules. It's just insane. It's almost like the Pokemon community, especially VGC players or Pokemon Challenges, have never read the Pokemon rules. There it is, illegally manipulated Pokemon. The use of external devices, such as a mobile app, to modify or create items or Pokemon in a player's battle team is expressly forbidden. Players found to have Pokemon or items that have been tampered with may receive disqualification, regardless of whether the Pokemon or items belong to that player or were traded for. Everything's covered here. Surprise! Game developers don't want you hacking their game to cheat in any capacity, and there's been official rulings from the Pokemon Company that you can't even breed hacked parents. No hacking involved whatsoever. You can't hack in 999 vitamins, Master Balls, or Terra Shards and have a legal Pokemon. Any form of modification, any form of hacking makes the Pokemon illegal. It's not a legitimately gen Pokemon or anything. It is a completely hacked, illegal Pokemon. And then there's the last part, regardless if traded for. That has always been in the rules. It's nothing new because it means you can't play dumb. You can't knowingly receive a hacked Pokemon from someone else and say, I didn't know, it's not mine. No, that's still cheating, and the rules account for that. But then the Pokemon VGC community and Pokemon Challenges are now attacking the Pokemon Company for reiterating that before Pokemon Worlds. As at all of our events. It's like they didn't even read the first line, or again, have never read the actual Pokemon rules for legality, because they're making up their own garbage rules and then thinking that applies to official tournaments. So teams will be checked for validity throughout the World Championships, and due to the highly competitive nature of this event, different tools are at our disposal for checking the validity of teams. So even say, hey, we've upped the hack check because it's freaking Worlds, but we've always done this anyway. We strongly recommend you do not use Pokemon provided to you by other people. That's always been in the rules. But cheaters and evil people like Pokemon Challenges are using this to attack the Pokemon Company, because Pokemon's supposed to be about friendship and community and trading with other people. That's why there's two versions and we're supposed to work together. But now we're forbidden from trading Pokemon, which makes it impossible to compete. Well, everyone's cheating anyways, so it's not like the Pokemon are being traded for, and they are knowingly receiving hacked Pokemon through the trades, so again, that was already accounted for in Rule 4.3. As some indicators that a Pokemon was illegally modified are hidden, and because of that, the outcry is to give us an official tool that lets us check if our Pokemon are hacked or not. That is one of the dumbest things I can ever imagine, and that's exactly what a cheater wants. Like, you can just see the toxicity and disrespect for all the rules in Pokemon with how the Pokemon community is responding to being held accountable for having hacked Pokemon on a grand scale for the first time, even though it's always been against the rules, and players have always gotten disqualified in some capacity for having hacked Pokemon. If we were allowed to check our Pokemon to see if they were hacked, well then that means you could just hack in all the Pokemon you want, keep brute forcing it until you get a team that won't flag, and now you've just completely cheated, and they provided a tool that made it easier to do so. So no, this doesn't protect legitimate players, it only empowers the cheating players, which is why it's only the cheating players complaining about this, or people that support and defend cheating like Pokemon challenges. Pokemon discovered to be illegally modified will result in team legality errors, and you will receive a penalty ranging from game loss to disqualification, and that's how the rules have been for many years now. It actually used to be more strict, where if you were found to have a hacked Pokemon, you would be disqualified. End of story. Now you can have a couple Pokemon removed until you don't have 4 Pokemon to compete. None of this is new, but suddenly the Pokemon VGC community is acting like this is something that's never happened before, and it's completely new, and we're also seeing that be restated by people like Wolfie VGC, Pokemon Challenges, and Blissey. Again, all of these people are evil at this point, and there's no defending it because of how much they have to lie and manipulate to defend cheating, stealing, and lying. It's crazy. Also, I found a comment quoting something Pokemon Challenges said in one of their videos, and to make some people who are very fun to watch when they're angry, very angry. Hi, Verlis. It's impossible to say Pokemon Challenges isn't evil. I've never done anything remotely this toxic in my time on YouTube, or any point in my life. This is someone that finds it funny to teach children to lie, cheat, steal, and be abusive. To encourage hatred in their audience towards anyone that's trying to do the right thing and be good. Evil. So from Pokemon Challenges video, he talks to one of the people that was disqualified. He admits to using hacked Pokemon completely, but in changing the hack check process for the final tournament of the competitive season, the Pokemon Company blindsided multiple players with definitions of hacked Pokemon that were inconsistent with what they'd have come to accept. That's a lie. The definition of a hacked Pokemon hasn't changed. It was also said that they were going to bring a better hack check. These aren't legitimate players that got blindsided because they accidentally flagged in a hack check. No, these are deliberate cheaters that have always cheated, and now they're being held accountable, and they can't cope that cheating is wrong. And then Pokemon Challenges has another bad faith infographic. Big surprise. To build a team without ginning trading, you have to own 4 to 5 Pokemon titles, 20 to 60 hours of playtime, and puts it in big scary red letters. This is a negative thing, that you have to own and play the Pokemon games, and that if you want to change your team, you have to do it again and spend extra time. All this proves is that ginning gives a competitive advantage, and is cheating. The only thing the Pokemon community has become is pure hypocrisy and toxicity, and I'm going to show even more of that later in this video. Also, a reminder to leave a like, comment your thoughts, and share with everyone so they can understand what is going on in the Pokemon community and how bad it is, especially on the competitive side. But also, this is another lie, because you are completely allowed to trade Pokemon. There is nothing forbidding you from having traded Pokemon when playing VGC. If you can actually trust someone, and that's where all these like, it turns out, cheaters, players that have only cheated and used Gen Pokemon, only have a network of people that have only cheated and used Gen Pokemon, so they can't get a legitimate Pokemon between them. That's on them, not the rules, not the Pokemon Company, not Game Freak, not anyone else. No one wants accountability, and that's also what you see with millennials and Zoomers just kind of ruining everything. And because Pokemon skews younger, we get even more of that. Also, you don't need to own 4 to 5 Pokemon titles. You only need 1 game to compete. So again, it's not against the rules to trade. You are not required to have more Pokemon copies. And then, if we just get into like the extra time, Pokemon is still easily the most accessible competitive discipline, even factoring in like having to have a couple $100s in games. Let's go over some other games, like chess. Chess is popping off right now, and it's one of the most popular forms of competition in the entire world, but it's always been a really big deal, and you can find articles how much I spent on becoming a Grandmaster. And that's another thing these brats and losers in the Pokemon community refuse to understand, is like, if you're competing, you are now in an elite level, or if you're trying to become the best, or qualify for Worlds, or win money, which is also why you are stealing if you are cheating, breaking the rules to deprive legitimate players of that prize money. But if you want to be competitive on a tournament level for any game, sport, or esport, you need to put in the time, work, and money to earn it. So here's what happens if you want to become a chess grandmaster. You need private coaching. This guy says, conservatively 60,000 Australian dollars, more like 75,000, but also not just direct private coaching, buying books and magazines and doing a lot of other research. That could be another 40,000 Australian dollars. And that doesn't include travel, which is going to be tens of thousands of more dollars because you have to participate in tournaments and then do consistently well to get your rating up, and then you go to other events, international events. So yeah, if you want to be a grandmaster, the elite of chess, it's going to cost an insane amount of money to get there. But again, that's true of other sports and even esports. There's also non-financial expenses. Of course, there's expenses beyond money. There's also time. I spent tens of thousands of hours on my chess to the point where I earned the Grandmaster title. But there's also time spent on deliberate practice. There's still another 10,000 plus hours spending reading the chess books, often visualizing the games in my head without a board, solving chess puzzles, researching chess base, everything else. Calculation based on me doing this for 2 to 3 hours a day since 2002. And again, that's what the Pokemon community, these millennials and Zoomers that have no life experience, they don't want to work or earn anything in their life, they don't care about anything, they are just pure narcissists. They don't understand what real sacrifice is, the dedication required to be competitive in any discipline. One of the arguments for hacking in Pokemon is that the only thing that matters is what happens in battle, except every competitive game and sport in history debunks that. What happens off the field is as important to influencing what happens on the field. You aren't allowed to dope in sports because your job is taking away from your training. And then people will say, oh, but steroids makes you unnaturally strong, so it's unfair. Except that's completely false because there's many banned substances that don't give you any physical advantage. It just improves training efficiency and recovery time. Now, the reason why I use chess as an example is because it's really good at exposing ignorance. A lot of people see chess and go, oh, a couple dollar board, it's free on chess.com. I can look up games, I can do like online articles and free research. So yeah, chess is incredibly accessible, except no, to be elite, it shows that it is incredibly complex and expensive, both for time and money. But it's also everything else, like sports. If you want to be an Olympic athlete, you're going to need a job on top of training to become one of the best in your country to represent against the world. Just because you're competing in the Olympics doesn't mean you get a free ride or have any special privilege. There's a series called Day Jobs that shows what Olympic athletes do when they're not training because they need another job to fund, and some of these people are even going to college while having a part-time job while training hard enough and putting in all of that time and work to become an Olympic athlete. And then the argument in Pokemon's like, oh, no one has time to play for a couple hundred hours to become competitive in Pokemon, especially if you have a kid or job or family. No, these are just entitled brats. And it's not just a couple of cherry-picked examples. Most Olympic athletes need a job to fund their Olympic dream, and they're going to be forced into debt because it's very expensive. I found this video, Olympians in Debt. You can watch full thing in the description down below so you can like not be ignorant like everyone in Pokemon Challenges audience and what these bad actors are creating in their communities. So he says he got $70,000 to $80,000 in debt to become an Olympic snowboarder while also being a plumber on the side. So this dude works as a plumber to put in more work for training to be an Olympic snowboarder and still ends up in debt. And people are going to say, well, yeah, you can make hundreds of thousands or millions as an Olympic athlete. That is the 1%. That is the very lucky, very elite, talented few. That also doesn't mean people like this guy are allowed to use steroids to catch up to them because they don't have the sponsors or they don't have a rich family to fund their dreams starting from an early age or have other connections that make it easier for them. No, it's just going to be different for everyone. That doesn't allow you to break the rules. And that is true if you want to be competitive in almost every sport or esport. Pokemon is actually one of the most accessible forms of competition, even if you use these extremely over-exaggerated, dishonest numbers coming from people like Pokemon Challenges and I'm a Blissey. It's still less time and money than any other form of competition. I had this video randomly pop up in my YouTube recommended recently, but I mean, good on the algorithm because it's surprisingly relevant. we restarted our golf career on a $1,500 budget. Now that was for 2 people, but what it means is that's an extreme challenge, like a content-worthy challenge to start golf on a $750 budget when you're also sharing expenses with another person. And that's just the bare minimum. It's not like, oh, I'm ready to go pro off of that. No, your gear is going to wear out. There's going to be many recurring costs, and that's before you've even entered tournament for the first time with golf. And then when it comes to esports, thousands of dollars more to get into esports than Pokemon, because you're going to need the top of the line gaming rig, or else you're just at a disadvantage if you have less frame rate or less monitor refresh rate and worse peripherals. Like, to be elite, you need to have the best stuff, and that's going to cost more money. And even for Smash Bros, the cost of controllers alone is going to be more than anything it costs to get into competitive Pokemon. So yeah, when we go back to this, again, we can just kind of see how evil the manipulation is from Pokemon challenges to make this seem like a bad thing. That you need to have a couple of copies of Pokemon games, but if you're competing in Pokemon, you should appreciate and enjoy the franchise. Also, it's the largest franchise in the world, with 20+ million copies being sold for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and Pokemon Sword and Shield, and then, over 15 million copies for a lot of the other games, which means everyone already has the games. So you need to play Pokemon games that you should already own, and it's only 20 to 60 hours of active playtime, I guess, for each game or for each team or something, and it only goes down with experience because breeding is a skill. If you take someone that has a lot of skill in training competitive Pokemon and someone that's never done it before, the person with skill training competitive Pokemon is going to do it much faster, and then in a world without hacked Pokemon and all the cheating that's going on, it means you actually have an advantage from being better at training Pokemon. That's what competition is about. Everything, not only what happens on the field or in battle. And extra time from team changes or meta developments, which again just proves that cheating gives a massive advantage because you're disadvantaging the player following the rules by hundreds of hours of work that is required by the rules and 100% necessary to competitive Pokemon. If you want to get Challenger in League of Legends, that's going to be thousands of hours of practice or games, and that doesn't even guarantee you a spot on an academy team, let alone pro. So you're not even making a living after dedicating an insane amount of time, money, and resources into other sports or esports. Also, it's a complete joke and pure hypocrisy from the Pokemon community that now transfer Pokemon are a bad thing, because just last generation, millions of people in the Pokemon community boycotted Game Freak because they removed the national dex from the games. You've never been able to catch every available Pokemon in a set of games, and in 2017 and earlier, when it was the same thing for VGC, no one had any complaints. It's only now that these cheaters are getting caught that you're seeing all the hypocrisy and complaints because they're crying that they're being held accountable. Further proving how worthless millennials and zoomers have become because these bad actor influencers have just fed their narcissism until they've become complete hypocrites. They will only lie. They will never accept truth or reality, and you can see the complete derangement everywhere in Pokemon. Same thing for the regulation issue. There's absolutely no problem here because it's 100% possible for anyone to keep up with the regulations without cheating Pokemon. There's another argument that it's unfair without cheating because then people with more resources and connections can just have people get Pokemon for them or even purchase legal Pokemon, and that's an unfair advantage. But as shown, the Pokemon VGC community can't find legal Pokemon because their entire network is filled with cheaters, further proven by Wolf Glick. Wolfie VGC is the most popular Pokemon VGC player, and he can't even get legitimate Pokemon. He has been caught with hacked teams multiple times in modern Pokemon, which proves that this would not be a major issue in any capacity. The largest person in Pokemon doesn't have the resources or connections to get legal Pokemon. So if we were in a world without cheating, where there's just far less availability of competitive Pokemon, since like 99% of competitive Pokemon are hacked anyways, further proven by all the disqualifications and cheating and bots and trades and just how prevalent cheating is in Pokemon, yeah, those become too valuable to just give to someone so they can use competitively. The time put into getting legal Pokemon when cheating isn't possible becomes way more valuable. So yeah, it wouldn't be an issue. Also, this is what happens in sports and other forms of competition, that there's just naturally more privileged people, either with money, circumstance, sponsors, or whatever. That's a legal advantage. You're allowed to have legal advantages. That's not cheating. Breaking the rules to gain an advantage. that's cheating, an illegal advantage. So it turns out cheaters and bad actors are dishonest, and they can't make a single valid argument. Shocking, I know. Pokemon Challenges then tries to make an appeal to emotion because we need to feel bad for the poor cheater that had a hatched Cresselia and got disqualified from Pokemon Worlds over it. So yeah, this Cresselia had been traded up since Generation 5, the hack check caught him, and then he learned many years ago, somewhere along the line of players that had the Cresselia before, modified it, but the only way to check is with hacking tools, and that's not fair. Wolfie VGC goes into more detail about this Cresselia, saying it was a disqualification from the Pokemon World Championships because a Cresselia they'd been using since Diamond and Pearl. Wait, that doesn't add up. Generation 4 or Generation 5. And that's another problem with this Cresselia story. You can't really find any concrete information about it. And cheaters have taken the story over to try to use to justify their cheating or show why what Game Freak is doing is wrong, even though there's a lot of inconsistencies and it's also been embellished with lies, and I'm going to show those lies in a bit. So this is their childhood Cresselia. Oh, the poor kid. It was traded to them from a beloved friend, but it ended up being hacked. And they used it at multiple tournaments over multiple years. They never had a reason to suspect it was cheated. And then they found out at the World Championships and was disqualified. They were so upset by this, they quit Pokemon and gave away all their Pokemon. Why do we have sympathy for cheaters? When you are representing at the Pokemon World Championships, it is your responsibility to make sure you are following the rules, and there is going to be less tolerance in the most elite levels of play, just like every other form of competition. But also, this Cresselia debunks a ton of cheater narratives because you can check if it's hacked or not. If the Cresselia is from Generation 4 or 5 and shows best in all stats, of course it's hacked. You don't get to be an elite Pokemon player and be completely ignorant of Pokemon legality. You just could not get perfect competitive Pokemon back then, and even going into Generation 6, it was only 3 guaranteed IVs, which is why the GS Cup for 2016 and Wolfie's team had all hacked legendary Pokemon, and everyone at their Worlds was using hacked legendary Pokemon. But if you're using the Cresselia and it doesn't have any hyper-trained stats, but it's still competitively viable, then that means it's hacked, and again, you don't get to play ignorance over this, and you should use a different Cresselia. Also, they said that the player had used the Cresselia at multiple tournaments, meaning that it's a competitive Cresselia, and if this was at any time before Generation 6, or if they never hyper-trained it, but they're using a perfectly competitive Cresselia, it means it's hacked. So there's no defending this cheater, but also because they've played over the years, they've had multiple opportunities to replace the Cresselia with something they know is legitimate to make sure there is no risk whatsoever. So we have Pokemon Black and White, Omega Green Alpha Sapphire, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, the expansion pass of Pokemon Sword and Shield. Again, Pokemon Sword and Shield being a game that sold over 20 million copies and has millions of DLC sales. So it's not an inaccessible Cresselia in any capacity. Every generation makes all of the legendary Pokemon accessible again, and the previous generation, Generation 8, has multiple ways of getting Cresselia, and it's a modern Cresselia that is going to be easier to make competitive. We have the expansion pass, Brilliant Diamond Shine Pearl, and Pokemon Legends Arceus, also Cresselia from Pokemon Go. So there were over half a dozen chances in over a decade in the games this player owned to be able to compete in tournaments to replace this hacked Cresselia. And they refuse to, because they don't care about the rules. Why do I feel sorry for cheaters? I don't. The sympathy card is bullshit. Pokemon Challenges then shows his complete ignorance of everything outside of hacking and cheating in Pokemon by using League of Legends and Riot Games as an example. Because at one of Riot's World Championships, they made a noopsie. They made it to where there was a giant screen behind the players. You can actually look behind and screen peek to cheat and gain information about the game. This is definitely a problem, but Pokemon Challenges tries to spin it by saying, see, other developers learn from their mistakes and they make it to where this doesn't happen at tournaments again, so there's no excuse for Game Freak to not make it to where people have to cheat. I'm too baffled by the stupidity of that to even know where to begin, because it's already just like self-evidently wrong and a false equivalence, because the entirety of Pokemon has been you train the Pokemon legitimately and follow the rules. And again, the rules have always been this way. This happened early on in League of Legends, where you're going to have a lot of developer errors, but using Riot Games as an example is one of the worst things because they still make constant errors and they refuse to admit problems that they've created. Riot still doesn't use soundproof booths because they think it takes away from the overall experience, even though there's countless examples of players being able to hear plays from the crowd, or even times have the caster come through their microphone. Also, their tournament formatting, grouping, and seeding has been ridiculed for pretty much forever, but Riot Games has to do it their way instead of actually admitting that something else is doing a tournament better than League of Legends and their pro scene. I don't have time to get into the history of how incompetent Riot Games is. Go watch Monte Cristo, Richard Lewis, or Thorin, but it's one of those things where if you know, you know. So this is isn't even a comparable example. It's also one of the worst developers to use as an example to make Game Freak look bad. And then, of course, we get to the pinnacle of stupidity when it comes to the cheating argument. Let's imagine a universe where competitive football players all around the world are required to bring hand-stitched balls by themselves to play the game. This is just completely invalid and a false equivalence. You can't make up rules that do not exist to then prove a point about rules that do exist that are being broken. You do not have to hand-stitch balls for soccer. Imagining a universe where this has to happen is pointless because it doesn't exist. We are in complete fantasy land to try to make a point about reality. No, cheating is wrong. If you can't follow the rules, you have no right to competition, and you aren't justified in breaking the rules because you think the rules are wrong. Now, this is also really weird from Pokemon Challenges because everyone has used the chess argument before, where it's oh, well, chess players aren't required to hand-carve pieces. That's because it's not in the rules of chess to hand-carve pieces. It is in the rules of Pokemon that a Pokemon must be legally obtained. We cannot imagine a world where chess players are required to carve their own pieces because it does not exist and we do not know the fallout or repercussions of that. It means that, okay, that means if you are caught without a hand-stitched ball or hand-carved chess piece, you're disqualified because that's the rules. And players following the rules will have no qualms about that. And if it's bad rules, then the scene dies and doesn't deserve to exist. And if there's no problem with the rules, then it's just chess. Yes, Pokemon is unique in that hand training is required for competition, but if you don't like the rules, don't play. It's not a valid protest to cheat and then cry about it when you get caught, and then make up all of these bullshit points to defend cheating. All of these bad actors like Alpharad, Wolfie, Blissey, Pokemon Challenges trying to warp the narrative against the developers and being pro-cheating and that grinding is cringe and cheating is based, that's not valid. A valid form of protest is abstaining from events from competitive Pokemon, not buying the games, and encouraging others to not buy the games until the VGC rules are changed. And if there's actually a demand for this, that means it's going to hurt the sales, it's going to hurt the tournaments, it's going to make it not viable, so it means Pokemon doesn't deserve to survive with these rules, and then change must happen that way, but you don't get to have your cake and eat it too by cheating until things change. And then crying about not being able to cheat until things change. That's not how competition works. So yeah, that's all the points debunked because it turns out cheating is wrong and the Pokemon community is too toxic for that to just be the response. But let's go to the comment section to see how Pokemon Challenges has deliberately groomed his young audience into being nasty brats. Grinding is cringe, cheating is base. Same thing goes for Alpharad, and again, everyone that's out there defending cheating like Blissey, Wolfie VGC, every Pokemon influencer, and tons of other Nintendo influencers. And it's just like a meme or a joke. Cheating is based. Grinding is cringed. That doesn't apply in the real world or any other competitive game, sport, or esport. Only in this fucked community. And then we have other memes and jokes piling in. Rare Candy Pilled because grinding is too hard. You gotta cheat in rare candies and Nuzlocks, which invalidates all the challenge or what a Nuzlocke even is. But anyone that's reasonable in the Pokemon community just comes in and gets bullied. We should eliminate training and strategizing and solely rely on steroids. Is that what you're saying? We have someone under that saying the only person saying that is you, except that's a lie. Again, these brats, these millennials and zoomers and all these people that have just been broken by overexposure to social media, they only know how to be hypocritical. They only know how to lie and feed their own narcissism. The top comment is saying this. Every person that left a thumbs up is saying this. Every comment agreeing in support is saying this. cheating is based. That means using steroids is based. Aimbotting is based. Working for your things in the real world is cringe. And yeah, that just sums up all of these younger, worthless generations. And then we have another one, walking in circles and mashing buttons for hours is not training, it's grinding. Another lie. It's literally training your Pokemon. We can also see the evil of Pokemon challenges rubbing off on his audience. Can we acknowledge that Verlisify calls people cheats for using rare candies and Nuzlockes? I am quoting what Pokemon challenges said in his short. In his video, he says, nowadays, almost everyone in the community, including me, cheats by hacking in rare candies, and he says, that's a good thing. Millennials and Zoomers are worthless. They don't care about anything, and they will deliberately lie and then band together to turn the lie into their perceived reality, even though it's still a lie. Pokemon Challenges encourages attacks on me like this, even though it's completely false. And then also just something completely irrelevant, unrelated. But Verlisify will happily use AI art and have the audacity to call himself a serious artist for touching up an AI image. Yes, there's no rules against using AI art. It is not cheating to use AI art. It's literally no different to using Photoshop compared to digital media because the tools and software allow you to do things that are physically impossible. The younger generations are just completely irredeemable and stupid, and then they get mad when you call them idiots for being idiots and saying stupid things. More comments. Regardless of what any person thinks about hacking, there's a fairly simple fix that should make everybody happy. Thinking that they're important enough to speak for everyone? Okay. More narcissism. Great. Either have the Pokemon Company generate teams based on team sheets the players have to submit anyway, or allow players to generate their teams as rental teams when they arrive using a Pokemon Showdown-esque interference. And this is like another new narrative where it's like, oh, we should just have an official battle simulator because cheating is so hard. It's so impossible to compete without cheating. As I've shown through this video, but also every other video talking about cheating in Pokemon and how legitimate players are attacked more than anything, and all of the lying, cheating, and stealing going on and other evil shit, the Pokemon community has not earned this in any capacity. You don't get to cheat and break the rules until you're rewarded with tools that effectively make cheating legal. I hate these brats. Now, I used to be like, yeah, you know what, we need this because Pokemon is like dead without it, but because the cheating is only getting worse, and now the community is being hypocritical about everything, there's more lying and defending cheating than ever, and now we're seeing like all these attacks on Game Freak. No, the Pokemon community doesn't deserve this in any capacity unless every person that has been caught cheating is permanently banned from the service. Serious extreme punishment for the cheating, so we have a fresh start with this, then I'm 100% for it. But again, you don't get to be rewarded for breaking the rules. If only Pokemon realized that making it easier to build teams means people wouldn't hack in Pokemon as much, for example, a rusty bottle cap, or a move tutor that allows Pokemon to learn every move from previous generations, this is a lie. This is pure stupidity. And again, you can just see the derangement and toxicity and evil in the Pokemon community to support this idea. The last decade of Pokemon has proven this is a lie. Pokemon X and Y, the Destiny Knot, easier breeding, easier hidden ability accessibility. Then we have Hyper Training with Generation 7, Mints in Generation 8, and Generation 9, making it easier than ever to get a competitive Pokemon. You can just buy everything, also vitamins in Generation 8. But now you can buy the Mints, buy the vitamins, you can buy bottle caps, you can just transfer egg moves between Pokemon, and you don't even need the same species anymore. The quality of life is unreal, and you know what it's done? Zero. Less cheating in Pokemon. I've said since Generation 6, hacking will exist no matter what, as long as it takes more than 5 minutes to get a team legitimately. That is the truth. It just shows how prevalent the dishonesty and lies are in the Pokemon community. It's almost impossible for Game Freak to make Pokemon more accessible than making a legal Pokemon generation tool. And these cheaters, these brats, these worthless losers, will not be satisfied until that is the case, which is why you can't cater to them. You just need to purge them all from the scene, start over, and then maybe we'll actually have something good in Pokemon again. Even though, as I've been showing with my other videos, we've never had it good in Pokemon. 2012 World Championships where we have Ray Rizzo versus Wolf Glick, that's all cheating. Sejun Park's Pachirisu, that's all cheating. Competitive Pokemon has never had any legitimacy or honesty, and Pokemon Challenges doesn't even have a gram of morality in his body. But there we go, guys. That is my video debunking all of the arguments defeating cheating in Pokemon that we are seeing from all of these bad actors. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.